Hey, thanks for tuning into my podcast. This is Big Head on the Block, hosted by me, Tim Henderson, aka Big Head. Hey, it's me, Big Head, and we're back on the block. Today, we're going to focus the podcast on tactical errors and friendly fire situations where officers are either hurt or lose their lives via friendly fire. So let's talk about the friendly fire component first, because I did a little research and read an article in a magazine. And although the numbers are extremely low, so in the United States of America, 2 officers on average are killed by friendly fire a year. Now, if you think about all the officers that are in the United States of America, that's pretty low. But imagine being the person that was killed. Imagine being a family member of the person that was killed. Imagine being the officer that pulled the trigger in a friendly fire incident and killed another officer inadvertently. That's got to be mentally taxing on everybody, right? It's a situation where lives and careers are probably going to be ended. Families are going to be destroyed. So we need to make sure from a tactical perspective that officers understand and visualize what is in their line of fire and make sure that they're making good decisions in these high-stress situations. After 32 years in law enforcement, I can assure you no officer wants to be responsible for killing another officer in a friendly fire incident. So that's going to lead me into the tactical situations. Some of these situations that I'm going to talk to you about are situations that I experienced or that I had firsthand knowledge of. Now, I don't do a lot of prep on my podcast because I feel like I should speak from experience, speak from the heart, and just basically give you as much insight as I can on things that I think are more important. The first incident I'm going to bring up is crossfire. I got a couple of situations I want to refer to in this crossfire. One, I personally was behind a vehicle that was, if I remember correctly, was a burglary suspect. Now, this vehicle was very unique, and it had the back window broken out. And eventually, I made the stop. I had about 7 or 8 officers behind me. And as I made the stop, we were going to treat it as a felony stop. It was on East Washington under the interstate. At the time that the people in the vehicle pulled over, like I said, I had 7 or 8 units behind me. We had a substantial presence. So, we were all prepared because I made sure before I put the lights and sirens on that I had enough people that had responded to the area and knew the situation. Well, I'm not going to give you his name, but I will say this. As we made the stop, we were going to treat it as a felony takedown because they were potential suspects. When I made the stop, other officers came around me and we were all positioned with the target vehicle in front of us. We had one guy who was a captain at the time. He decided he was gonna, I don't know how to describe it more than just say he was gonna be a cowboy. He decided to pull up in front of the vehicle, as you see many people on these cop shows do, and cut off the vehicle. Well, the vehicle was stopped to begin with, but what he did inadvertently, or just trying to be a hero, I don't know what his motivation was, I never asked him. What he did was position himself in front of the target vehicle, much like you see on these cop shows where an officer will pull in front and cut him off. That just don't happen in the real world, and it shouldn't happen in the real world. And almost 100% of the situations, I'm sure there's situations where it's a good tactic, but I can't think of one offhand. But here's what happened. I had a tactical officer that was behind me that was assisting me in the stop. When the captain did that, my tactical guy hollered at the captain. He said, "Captain, you got us in a crossfire." So what it is we're behind the vehicle's there, and then the captain's in front. So if he shoots at the bad guy, the bullets are going to come toward us. And if we shoot at the bad guy, bullets are going to go toward him, right? So what he did, he got back in his car, and then he eventually drove off, which gave us the ability to go ahead and make the stop and bring this whole thing to a conclusion. However, if it would have went bad right away, we would have all been in a crossfire. And these are situations that officers put themselves in way too often. Now, the next thing I'm going to talk about is a video from Carroll, Iowa. I think it was in 2021, and a couple years later, the body cam footage came out. And I'm going to analyze this video just from my perspective. I don't like to analyze other cops' video in general per se, but I think this one needs to be talked about because I think a lot of critical errors were made. And I think if the officer had to do it again, he probably would have taken a different approach. So the gist of it is a violator stop occurred. The video from the news perspective indicated that it was a routine traffic stop. During the course of the investigation, the officer learned that the passenger had a warrant out for forgery, right? No violent crime, nothing major. Forgery is what it is.
Hey everyone, I'm Brittany Henderson, a realtor in the Livingston Parish and Greater Baton Rouge areas, ready to help you with all your buying and selling needs. Give me a call today and let's get started. 225-448-7709.
So I'm going to break this down from the initial conversation he has once he finds out that the guy has a warrant. He goes to the passenger side, tells the guy, I hate to inform you, but you have a warrant for forgery out of Illinois. Right then and there, he should have never told that guy that when he didn't have any kind of control over him. He should have got him out of the vehicle and done what he had to do to secure him and then notify him of this. Because now that you tell somebody they have a warrant and you don't have any way to go hands-on with them, they're going to, if they don't want to go to jail, what are they going to do? They're going to run. They're going to get in the vehicle and run. Well, let me tell you what this guy does. This guy, and I can't tell for sure, but it looks like the passenger window is up during this conversation. What the passenger does is he pushes someone out of the driver's seat. He jumps into the driver's seat and he takes off. When he takes off, the cop decides that he's going to get on the hood of the vehicle, and you can see him on his knees pointing the gun at him, demanding that he stop. Well, this guy obviously is motivated not to stop because he already pushed somebody out of the car, took over the driver's seat, and now he's fleeing. The cop has his pistol on the guy the whole time. So what happens now? The cop has put himself in multiple disadvantages. Number one, he's on a vehicle that this news broadcast indicates gets up to around 60 miles an hour. He's telling the guy to stop. The guy's refusing. He is in a deadly force encounter, but only because he put himself in one. He can assume that death or great bodily harm will come to him, right? So if he chooses to take that shot to stop the driver when the driver's doing 60 miles an hour, who knows what's going to happen to the vehicle, right? So the cop's hanging on for dear life. The suspect runs into a train, or he doesn't run into the train. He sees that a train is blocking his path. So he veers off, goes into another area, and eventually he hit a big ditch. The cop flew off. The cop broke his back. So we're not going to talk anymore about the chase. We're going to talk about the repercussions of a tactical error. First of all, everything that led up to this point, do you think at the end that the cop regrets probably getting on the hood of that car? Yes. There was another officer who was on side of the driver's side as it was occurring. He should have told the guy to get off the car, right? This cop obviously got focused on apprehending somebody more than he did about safety. So officers, what I'm telling you is this: be tactically sound. If they get away, they get away. Never get on the hood of a car. Now, you actually, if you think about it, you put the other officer that was watching this, you put him in a situation where he could have reacted on your behalf and taken a shot and wound up shooting this guy. Then y'all would have both been in court, right? So you need to make sure that you understand the consequences of your behavior, because when you make mistakes, it makes other people react to your mistakes. This cop never should have got on the car. And if you're listening, I'm not going to mention your name. I think that, first of all, I hope that you healed up from your broken back. Second of all, I hope that you have talked to people and said, look, this was an error. I got caught up in the moment. I shouldn't have done it, but I did. Now, I don't know what the outcome of the case was, because this was a tactical scenario that I was giving you. The outcome of the case is insignificant. What's significant is that the officer put himself and other officers in danger. And we have got to make sure that we're always at an advantage when we're making these traffic stops or interacting with the public. Now, I'm going to give you another example. This happened in 2008, 2009 when I was a burglary detective. So the scene is set like this. We have warrants on multiple people in a vehicle, and they're burglary warrants. We had them under surveillance. We identified them. We knew that they were the targets and they were in the car. So we have 2 lanes going one way, 2 lanes going the other way. The target vehicle is in front of not my car, but the next detective's car. But we have both lanes occupied and he's in front of us. So I call and tell Uniform Patrol that we're behind 2 burglary suspects and we have active warrants on them, because you need to get additional resources in the area for a multitude of reasons. First of all, it's better to have a uniformed patrol officer in a marked unit make the stop for you. Second of all, if they run, you want to have resources in the area that can immediately deploy, as opposed to, having to call for backup and chase them and lose them. So what happens is this: the target vehicle, as I called for Uniform Patrol help, they started coming to the area. Well, as luck would have it or not have it, we got caught at a red light and the suspect vehicle was stopped in front of us. Well, the detective on the side of me that was in the other vehicle, it was 2 in my car and 2 in their car. He decides he wants to get out and engage them. I said, negative. I see Uniform Patrol officers in the area. Let them make the stop. He doesn't want to. So what does he do? He exits, and the way he exited, I'm thinking that he was in the passenger seat, but of the other vehicle, but I'm not sure. He exited. He goes around to the front of the vehicle and engages the bad guy, and basically tells them, put their hands up. They have a warrant for their arrest. I don't remember the exact terminology he used. Well, you got to realize, man, you got somebody approaching you, and even though we had our badges displayed, we are in plain clothes, T-shirts and all. He tells them to stop the vehicle, get out the vehicle and all that. They're not complying right away. I don't know if they're trying to figure out a method of escape or if they're just trying to figure out what's going on. From what I remember, they didn't even know they had burglary warrants. But anyway, as he did what he did, he's in the front of their vehicle now. All the guy has to do is press on the accelerator and bam, he's dead. Which at the point in time is going to make me have to react, and then my co-detectives have to react to either save him or to stop the perpetrator from getting away, right? So I tell the detective, he's in front of the car. I said, hey, man, you got us in a crossfire. And his response was, I don't care about no crossfire. Y'all need to handcuff them guys. So I'm at the driver's door, and he does not have the car in park. We have an officer in front of him. Now, a detective. The detective, he decides he's going to put his foot on the bumper. So he puts his foot on the bumper, and he has his weapon pointed at them. And at that point in time, because it's a felony stop, we have our weapons out. At that point in time, I tell the driver in no uncertain terms, I'm not going to repeat what I told him, but I let him know that if he didn't put that car in park and he hit the accelerator, that things weren't going to go good for him. Let me just put it that way. So at that point in time, I had to reiterate to this guy that his life was in jeopardy if he didn't listen to me. And if he hit the accelerator, that he would probably not make it out alive. Well, he listened, he complied, and we made the arrest. I think it was 2 of them that we arrested. I don't remember how many was in the vehicle. But let's think about this. We had Uniform Patrol in the area. They could have made the stop. Maybe the guys don't even know that they have a warrant and it goes really easy. But what could have happened in this situation is this. He could have hit the accelerator, causing me to have to defend that officer's life. The detective that was in front of the car should have never been there. And if he hears this podcast, I told you that day you shouldn't have done it. And you, as they say, got in your feelings. And yeah, we made the arrest, but was it worth it if the outcome would have been different? So listen, officers, don't put yourself in a life and death situation and put other people in jeopardy, because now I'm having to assert my authority on this guy and tell him, if you do something that harms this officer, you're going to be in serious trouble, probably lethal trouble, right? So you got to be smart, officers. You can't do stupid things. Now, while we're on the subject, I want to go over something else. And look, I get a little bit passionate about this because some of these things annoy me because our objective is to go home every night, not to get involved in some dumb BS and get killed, right? So here's the situation. I'm a burglary detective. This is probably 2009 or 10. I'm not sure. We get a call out that I was the only detective on duty, so I got a call out in an area that I don't normally handle. The Uniform Patrol had made several arrests, and there were 2 complexes that had actually been broken into. They had multiple people in custody, so I responded to the scene. Being that I was by myself on that particular day, I asked the Uniform Patrol to assist me in transporting some of these people to my office. There's no way, I'm in an unmarked unit. There's no way I can handle 4 people alone. So Uniform Patrol does that. There was one subject that got away, and we didn't have any idea where he was. But Uniform Patrol, I think it was 3rd District at the time, they made these arrests, and they did an outstanding job of not only making the arrest, but finding alternate locations that these people had done burglaries. So I'm just going to give you a guesstimate, 25, 30, maybe 40 cars got broken into. So it was a pretty substantial case. And just to put a little joke into it, when I went to detectives, my mentor, and he's been on the podcast before, Jerry Bloom, said, "Hey man, just remember this. Some days when you're in the detective division, you're going to get more information than you want." Well, this was one of those things because this was going to occupy not only all of my day, it was going to involve a lot of paperwork. However, I was happy that UP made the arrest, because basically these people are preying on individuals and personal attacks on their houses, their cars and stuff. In this particular event, it was the cars. So as we're driving back to the office, we get a call, and I think it was off of Choctaw, that a black male has a Hispanic male at gunpoint. Well, everybody that we arrested was Hispanic, so it made sense we had one, and we just kind of thought about how far this guy could have got away. We said, this got to be the next guy, the one that got away from us. So I responded to that scene while the other officers went to the detective office to secure the prisoners. As I get to the scene, I'm approached by another officer, and I don't remember who it was. He was there, and we had a sergeant who had taken the guy into custody. So real quick, what happened was the Hispanic guy was walking. He saw another vehicle. He tried to break into it. One of the guys told whoever this guy was, it was a black guy that was at work. He said, "Hey man, somebody's breaking into your vehicle." And the guy knew that he had a gun in the vehicle. So what he did, he went to the vehicle, and he went to the opposite side of the driver, if I remember correctly. I'm sorry, the suspect. He reached in, got his gun, and he held the guy at gunpoint until we got there. And at that point, the first person there was a sergeant. Now, I'm not going to mention his name because the objective of this is not to embarrass, but to educate. So I'm there. A UP officer's there. He's a young guy. I don't remember who it was. And then you have a sergeant who's got probably 20-something years of experience. He brings the handcuffed suspect to us. He hands us a hat with the guy's wallet, keys, and everything. Well, I take that from him, and I tell the officer, as he's putting the guy in his car, I said, "Hey, man, you need to check that guy." And he said, "Well, the sergeant already checked him, and he got all this stuff." And I said, "No, you always check somebody before you put them in your vehicle." And I'll tell y'all why. I learned that lesson in a few minutes. But this is what happened. I know the officer really don't want to listen to me, but I'm like, "No, you need to go ahead and check him, man." So he patted the guy down, and guess what he found? He found a loaded weapon in his pocket. So at that point in time, we secured a weapon, and he puts him in his car. And I told the officer, I said, "You just learned a valuable lesson that I could tell you, but you experienced it. So you make sure everybody else understands before you put somebody in your car, because you don't know the capabilities of the other officers. You don't know how good they searched, right? A loaded gun was in his pocket. How you miss a loaded gun when you get a wallet, keys, and everything else, I don't know." But I went back to that sergeant, and he and I had a lengthy discussion. And he was a nice guy. I just knew him kind of in passing, but I didn't know him. But I let him know that his actions put people's lives in danger and that his behavior was reprehensible and he needed to be tactically better than he was at that particular moment. And he didn't get mad about it because he understood he was wrong. You know, sometimes you just got to eat crow. You put all of our lives in jeopardy because guess what? I would have been at that burglary office I would have checked him because I check everybody. He's not coming into my office without getting checked. But just say, for instance, I didn't. There's videos of people and there were detectives that have put people in a room and those people have had guns. They've shot themselves, and I'm sure on occasion they've shot officers. So this was a critical error by the sergeant, but it was a lesson learned by this officer, and it was a lesson learned. I had already learned this lesson, not to the extent of that, but lives could have been lost. You have to be tactically sound, officers. You always have to be able to make sure that you are safe. That's the number one priority. You going home and me going home is the number one priority. And if you overlook something because it's a routine, then you're putting everybody's life in danger. Now, the end of this story, they had, I believe, 5 Hispanics go to jail. I had 1,000 pieces of evidence and not 100, but probably 30, 40 pages of information I had to fill out involving the whole arrest. But kudos to the uniformed patrol officers that assisted me in this. They helped me with the property. They helped me with booking. They helped me transport the people to the parish prison for booking because I was working alone that day. While we're on that topic of doing pat-down searches and all, there was an offender who had a warrant for armed robbery. I was able to negotiate his surrender, so I met him at a location, took him into custody. Well, he understood that he was going to jail and he'd probably be there for a while. So typically what people do when they surrender and they know they're going to be in jail, they'll usually put on 2 or 3 pair of socks, 2 or 3 pair of underwear, and 2 or 3 T-shirts because this is stuff that can stay with them while they're in a holding cell as opposed to trying to get it later. So as I met with him in a predetermined location, there was a couple things going through my mind. First of all, I had to be aware of my surroundings, make sure there was not an ambush set up. I have to make sure that I understand the dynamics of what he's done and what he's capable of. So I had pulled a criminal history on him. I had seen either violence or lack thereof of violence, right? So I knew everything I could know about this guy. I knew what we talked about over the phone. So predetermined location, no ambush set up. As I approached him in a tactical manner, I was able to get him handcuffed, at which time I did a pat-down search, subject to arrest. Eventually, I went through all his pockets and everything, made sure he didn't have anything, like in his pants legs or anything, socks, all that. You have to make sure that he has nothing because, first of all, you're fixing to give him to another officer. Second of all, he's going to the parish prison. And if he brings in contraband or something, then you're going to be responsible for it, right? So I went through the process. And one more thing, officers, while you're out there patting these guys down, a lot of them wear shorts under their jeans or pants, whatever. And a lot of times they can conceal little things in those short pockets. So if they have on shorts, you're just going to have to reach your hand and make sure that they don't have anything, right? So just do your very best to make sure they don't have anything. Well, when I get him to the armed robbery office, the detective, Kevin Hines, was there, and he said, you can put him in the holding cell. And I said to him, Kevin, I want you to do a pat-down search before I give him to you because I don't know that I told Kevin this, but I always make somebody pat somebody down when I give them to them because I don't want to be responsible. If something happens to you, it's on you. But if it happens to you because of something I missed, then I'm going to have to live with that. So Kevin knows I'm an experienced cop and I've made hundreds and hundreds of arrests. And I think he trusted me to the point that I wasn't going to let this guy bring a weapon in there. Well, during the course of the pat-down search, Kevin felt something a little funny in one of his T-shirts. And what happened was the guy, knowing that he was going to surrender, had actually taken the time to take the seam out of the bottom of one of the T-shirts. And what he did we thought he had marijuana in there, but he actually had cigarettes squished up. And I will say kudos to Kevin for finding it, because I did what I thought was an extensive pat-down search. And I may have felt the same and not thought anything of it. But Kevin kept feeling, it's like, hey, man, something feels a little funny. And come to find out, the guy had taken the seam off and had basically sewn in fragments of cigarettes, because it was illegal to have cigarettes in a prison at this time, you know. So at that point in time, obviously we made him take the shirt off. And out of all the shirts, he only had it sewn in one. But he did a good job of concealing it. That's why I get people to check. I never, ever, ever give you a prisoner and allow you to put him in your car or in your office without checking him, because it just ain't tactically sound. So what did I do? I was a little bit embarrassed, and I apologized to Kevin. I said, man, I'm sorry I missed it. And he's like, man, he did a pretty good job of concealing it. Now, you know, thank God it wasn't a weapon. And I went through the process to make sure he didn't have any weapons on me. But I got duped on this one. But ain't no shame in my game. What did I do? I went back. I took a picture of the shirt, and I took a picture and wrote a description, and I emailed it via our email system to all officers in the Baton Rouge City Police Department. And I said everything that I told you already, that I handed him off to the detective. The detective did a pat-down search, and we found this contraband. Now, I wasn't, you know, people like, well, you didn't have to do that. I mean, wasn't that embarrassing? No, it's never embarrassing. It's embarrassing to me personally, but I'm not going to conceal something I did when it can benefit you in the future. Because now I've told you the mistake I made. It wasn't a critical mistake because nobody got hurt, nobody got killed, right? But now everybody knows this is what they're willing to do, and the extreme measures that they're willing to go to get contraband into that prison. So I sent out the information. You know, a couple guys read me, but you know, it's all in the day's work, man. I don't let that bother me. I knew I was a good, effective cop, and I got this guy off the streets for armed robbery. And luckily, Detective Hines was able to stop him from entering that contraband. Because what would have happened is when they took his clothes off and made him switch into the orange, they probably would have found it. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. It was hidden pretty good. So, like I said, kudos to Kevin for doing that job. But if they would have found it, just say Kevin and I, neither one of us found it, then we would have had to go back and charge this guy with entering contraband into the prison, which in itself is, you know, going to take a lot of time and trouble. So officers, be tactically aware, be tactically sound, do your pat-down searches. And now that I told you they're willing to put stuff in the seam of their T-shirts, check the seam of their jeans. Check everything you can to make sure that you don't put anybody's lives in jeopardy. And to the officers that I mentioned in these earlier stories, understand this. Your behavior could have had everlasting consequences on yourself and everybody else. So officers, do your job, be proficient at your job, be tactical, understand crossfire, understand, as they taught us at the range, shooting from death. Make sure that you do not put anybody else's life in danger, because 2 officers a year in America, on average, get killed by friendly fire. That's on average historically. I don't have a yearly breakdown, but you have to be responsible for your tactical awareness at all times. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Big Head on the Block. I'm Tim Henderson, the host. I look forward to dropping another podcast soon. Please give us any comments, likes, dislikes, or any topics y'all would like to discuss. Thank you.